I'm curious what you think about the American landscape as far as Catholicism goes. There's a many sort of on the right and conservative sort of comrades in arms that on abortion, on marriage.
Are you talking? There's many in the right on Catholic,
that are
world?
Catholic, that are and that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you also have I think far more Protestant influence on Catholicism in America.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more evangelical. It's it's confused, but I've talked to many Catholics.
I'm saved by grace.
I explain the gospel to them. They're like, yeah, that's what I believe, and I'm like, okay, well, praise the Lord, but your church doesn't teach that.
Did your priest know?
Yeah. I talked to a priest one time. I was actually confronting him over the fact that we were more Catholic on the Protestant side, because I said we actually would receive a Catholic baptism of someone who says they're following Jesus. Like, well, come on in, and you can take communion with us. But I'm not allowed to as a Protestant.
Right.
And I said, you're sectarian.
We're too Catholic to be Catholic.
And I said,
my head just went.
I said, why won't you accept Christian baptism from another denomination? And this Catholic priest said, because I want to be sure that whoever comes to my table has a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, and he was a former Baptist.
Yeah.
Like many Catholics are.
Yeah.
But it's like that's funny. That's like the Protestantization of Roman Catholicism. I'm just curious though, what do you see? I mean, so you've got this anti-woke backlash in process right now.
Yeah.
And there are some Catholics as part of that. But then you also have these influences that you're talking about, where the wokeness is, the socialism, the social justice doctrines, the liberationist stuff is starting to bleed into the rest of the practice. And I mean, do you think that's going to happen here in America as well, or what do you see happening?
I think, well, what you're seeing, especially on Twitter, on X, you're seeing these very heavy Catholic influencers.
Yes.
Right? We know these guys. Michael Knowles being one of them, just very eloquent, classically trained. I think that's the voice of the Catholic future. I think on a much
the conservative side.
Of the conservative side, yeah. The general Catholic populace, I think, has gone woke in many directions, and that is going to be harder to rescue. I think if they are rescued, they're not going to go to the Catholic parish. They're going to find refuge in Protestantism, because the true voices that they are aware of, and the true voices that honestly offer stability, are the conservative Protestant voices. Yeah. I think you and I have talked about this before, totally, but there's a reality of what you said I think is very true, is that American Catholicism looks nothing like Catholicism outside the United States. Yeah. American Catholicism is highly Protestantized. You've given a few examples before. I've been to Catholic Mass where they sung versions of A Mighty Fortress Is Our God.
Luther!
I kid you not.
Do they know Luther wrote that?
I suspect they may.
Video or it didn't happen. Yeah. Video or it didn't happen.
The closing hymn of a Mass, by the way, it was the St. Augustine Parish in Orlando. I remember that very distinctly.
Oh, my gracious.
And so now, you're dealing with a Protestantized form, and you can hear this even in the way they pray. They pray like Southern Baptists in the South. There's that dear Lord, where traditionally you have these very scripted prayers memorized. However, you leave the United States and you find Catholicism in any part of the world, in Brazil, in South America, or in Europe, and you're going to find things that look like ancient mysticism.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to find Catholics going to Mass on Sundays and literally bowing down before statues of false gods throughout the week. Right. There is a discordant message.
You wouldn't be shocked to see them leaving fruit in front of the statues of Mary.
Not at all.
Not at all. Like ancient pagans did.
Or in beaches.
Yeah. Right.
So is that American Protestantism, or is that just Americanism? I guess since America is Protestant, it kind of just bled off into Catholicism.
Yeah, 100%. The power of evangelical Protestantism in any other tradition is remarkable. It's so influential. The largest growing segment of the world is charismatics, obviously. Within Catholicism, the largest growing segment are Catholic charismatics.
Yeah, I met some.
There is an inescapability to evangelicalism which permeates everything. Whereas, think about this. Whereas Catholicism tends to segregate and fragment elements of who they are as a people in church life and outside of church, Protestantism by nature, you can say because of our Protestant work ethic, the Puritan influence, whatever it might be, has always looked at theology as an integrated thing. And young Catholics want that. So I think it's already happening where you're seeing conservative Catholics abandoning their local Catholic parishes and coming to conservative Anglican churches, or even the CRC. We see a lot of this, and
Yeah.
it's not uncommon in our CRC
Right.
churches to see Catholics coming to
Sure.
our churches.
So is it possible to see a reformation inside of Catholicism?
The question is, what will it take for that to happen? Will it take a fragmentation of the Catholic Church at large? It's very possible that the conservative Catholics will not be able to withstand another,
Yeah.
this guy's 69, another 20 years
Yeah.
of liberal policies on environment,
Yeah.
liberal policies on economics,
Or LGBT stuff.
or LGBT stuff.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't know. And if
Yeah.
it takes a fragmentation of the Catholic Church, you're going to see. Here, let me just one final comment.
Please,
here.
please.
Yeah.
The observation that Protestantism is divided and fragmented and split into 1,000 pieces,
Yeah.
however true that is, I can say at a certain level that exact thing happens within Catholicism. It happens within from a parish in one city to a parish in another.
Very much.
You can have a priest who supported Kamala Harris, and then a priest who was very pro-Trump.
Or a priest who wouldn't excommunicate Joe Biden.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 And they're not really in fellowship.
They're not in fellowship with one another.
They have the this is one of the things that the Eastern Orthodox do this as well, but they pretend that they have this
They're the true church. We're all unified.
this
We're all-
pristine unity.
Yeah.
Right.
We are the one church. And it's just this, it's a facade though, because as soon as you get under the like scratch and sniff surface, they have just as many divisions. They just have the advantage of, being, as long as they can trace the ordination of their pastor, priest, bishop, archbishop back to one of the patriarchs or the pope, they're like,
Right.
we're in unity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's not Christian unity.
Yeah.
Like, Christian unity is actually worshiping together. Christian unity is actually working together, loving.
fighting together.
Yeah. So it's kind of silly.
Yeah, they root their entire unity on the premise of apostolic succession.
Right.
Right.
Which means they separate that from culture, theology, liturgy, which is fairly diverse even within Catholicism.
Right.
Man, that's interesting.
Well, it's funny. Today, I had a couple of my papist friends they were excited today,
Yeah.
and they were wanting to argue. I don't know. I mean, I just out of the blue. I was
But
getting-
there's a drama to it, right? That's the unique thing.
the new pope today.
The
they're
white
excited.
smoke,
They're-
the white
the
smoke.
white smoke
From the
smoke.
West.
Yeah.
I had a friend come at me and said that Calvin and Protestantism did not have as much impact on the West as Catholicism did. And then I responded, I was like, wherever Protestant has gone, they've created basically first world countries.
Exactly.
Great Britain, US were two examples I gave. And I said, wherever Catholicism's gone, it's basically created second world countries, Spain and Mexico. And then he responded and said, well, it's not like America's a moral country right now. And then I said, well, Mexico's not doing any better.
No.
It was just a really funny conversation. But I guess, the Catholics were so excited. This conversation started because he was just excited. He just came at me. I don't know. It was funny. But the Catholics were so excited about the Pope. And in one sense, I think when they're electing, this guy's we're going to still figure out where he's at.
Mhm.
But he seems at least some level on, as you described him, maybe morally conservative, maybe economically socialist or whatever. But I think the last Pope did so much damage to the
Mhm.
Catholic Church. I have a bunch of Catholic friends up in northern Idaho, and they couldn't stand this Pope. And I
Mhm.
said, welcome to Protestantism.
Yeah.
But they're solid. I think they're evangelical Catholics. They're like-minded. They know they know we're in a moment where we need to fight culture. Like they're on it in a way that even some Protestants aren't on it, kind of thing. But that Pope was dividing those guys, was discouraging those guys. I think there's kind of this schism or something that's happening in this new Pope. If he's like Pope Francis at all, I think there's going to be some.
Oh, I hope he is.
In some sense, because I'm pretty like-minded with my Catholic buddies up in
whatever
North
it
Idaho,
takes to
fight
split
culture
it
and
off
stuff.
and create a reformation inside of the Catholic Church where those
Yeah.
guys become Protestant. I'm happy for that.
Yeah.